At St. Peter's Bay the harbor curved like sheltering hands of stone, where fishing craft rode low at chain and weathered gulls had flown. The folk there lived by net and tide, by cod and herring shoal, hard men with salt burned in their skin and north winds in their soul. Above the bay the bell tower stood against the sea cliff bare, an iron bell hung black with age and crying in the air. The old men said in years gone by, when doom rode in from sea, that bell would sound before the storm for those with ears to heed. One autumn dusk the tides turned strange, the gulls fled inland fast, the harbor dogs whined low and hard, the daylight dimmed too fast. Yet still the fishermen made ready to chase the silver run, for winter stores were running thin and hunger had begun. Then through the fog came Nazareth, with sea wind in his hair, a weather cloak about his frame and dark eyes sharp with care. No boat he brought, no servant crew, no riches at his side, yet every harbor man grew still as he came down the tide. He climbed the path beside the cliffs where wild spray lashed the stone, and long he stood beside the bell against the sky alone. Then sudden through the deep sea fog the iron warning cried, a sound that rolled through every house like thunder over tide. The captain's curse, the catch runs now, we cannot lose the day, but Christ turned hard against the wind, no keel leaves out the bay. Some mocked the stranger from the south, some laughed and cut their lines, yet old Saint Abram crossed himself and stayed behind the pines. All night the harbor lantern shook beneath the sick green sky, the sea beyond the reef line roared like beasts that would not die. Then just before the midnight hour the tempest struck the coast, a mountain sea with shattered foam and wrath enough for hosts. 3 boats were caught beyond the reef, their mast lights tossed like sparks, the breakers hurled them toward the cliffs through chaos black and stark. The harbor folk cried out in dread, no lifeboat could break free. Then Christ seized rope and lantern both and strode into the sea. The surf rose high around his chest, the undertow pulled deep, yet through the storm he moved as though the waves themselves would keep their fury chained beneath his tread, and one by one through spray he hauled the broken sailors home, alive to St. Peter's Bay. At dawn the storm lay spent and cold, the sea turned iron gray, the shattered wrecks lay on the reef like bones washed up by fate. The villagers stood hushed to see the Nazarene once more, beside the bell above the cliff where wild gulls wheeled and soared. Then Abram spoke with trembling voice, I've fished these waters long, no mortal man walks storm tides thus, nor bends the deep so strong. But Christ looked out beyond the bay, where sunlight split the foam. The sea takes many wandering men, my father brings them home. And still today, when fog rolls thick round St. Peter's weathered quay, the old bell sometimes tolls alone before the raging sea. And harbor folk still tell their sons, when black tides climb and sway, a watchman once stood by the bell and saved St. Peter's Bay.